And just because we found some receipts, you did say, I think homosexual activity is a sin.
Yes, I'm a religious Jew.
Sure,
That's true.
there's a genetic component.
You found me out.
Yesterday, Ben Shapiro of the Daily Wire, a good friend and a colleague, he appeared on Capitol Hill for a hearing. And this was an important hearing. It had to do with organizations out there who pretend to be fact checkers and pretend to ward off misinformation and disinformation. And then they give websites certain ratings. And based on the ratings of misinformation and disinformation, advertisers and ad agencies, especially on the internet, will move their clients' dollars away from those websites if they peddle in what these organizations call misinformation. You won't be surprised to find out that the vast majority of news sites and opinion sites that are rated low, as if they have a lot of misinformation, they're almost all conservative. And left-wing websites, well, they get high rankings. That's not misinformation. It's just liberal opinion, right? Well, the Daily Wire, Ben Shapiro's website, they are hit with this quite often. And so he went to testify about it and deliver the facts about this. That brings us to Eric Swalwell. Eric Swalwell, the congressman from California, decided to take his 5 minutes of questioning of Ben Shapiro to not talk about the issue at hand in any way whatsoever, but instead try to engage in a one-on-one debate, a duel, a fencing match with Ben Shapiro. It didn't end well for Eric Swalwell, not at all. But beyond this being a great shining moment of Ben Shapiro's intellect and rhetorical ability, this also was an incredibly terrifying glimpse into the mind of the American left, personified by Eric Swalwell. Because make no mistake, over on MSNBC and at similar streaming news shows like this, but on the left, they are celebrating Eric Swalwell. They think he did great. They think he's amazing, which should terrify you if you actually look at what he said. And we're going to break it down right now.
Probably want less bureaucracy, right?
I do.
I want less bureaucracy. You want more efficiency.
I do.
I want more efficiency. You want taxpayer money spent wisely.
I do. Congrats on becoming a Republican.
Yeah. Yeah. My parents would be proud.
That was actually a very funny moment, and Ben laughing along with Eric Swalwell, I think, was great. And this had to do with Swalwell's framing of this Project 2025 that they're desperately trying to make into some sort of fascist thing because, of course, they can't talk about their candidate. So he saw that wasn't going anywhere. So now watch where he goes.
Mass deportations, it calls for that. Do you support that part?
I support the deportation of any illegal immigrant who's in the United States who is not of benefit to the generalized American public.
So if they're picking agriculture that puts food on the tables of everyday Americans, they've never committed a crime inside the United States, they didn't come across with documents, should they be deported?
Do you notice how the Democrats always go to picking fruit and picking vegetables? They cannot help themselves from being racist. Somebody's in this country illegally. Clearly, they're picking fruit. They're picking vegetables. They're making beds in hotel rooms. They're busboys at hotels. It's like the stereotypes are so strong with this. And by the way, 10 million illegal immigrants crossed the border in just the last 3 years. How many strawberry bushes do we have in this country? But it's always goes back to agriculture. But did you hear what he said there at the end there about whether they've committed a crime? Listen again. First of all, they have committed a crime in this country because they entered into this country illegally. They remain in this country illegally. And now they are working in this country without the benefit of being a citizen or in this country illegally. So those are all crimes, Eric. But listen to what he said.
Agriculture that puts food on the tables of everyday Americans, they've never committed a crime inside the United States.
They've never committed a crime inside the United States. Oh, they're mass murderers in Honduras. They're gang members and drug dealers in Guatemala. In Venezuela, they were part of the mafia. But there's they haven't committed a crime here. Hey, I got an idea, Eric. If they are trying to get into our country and it turns out they're criminals from the country they're coming from, maybe we shouldn't let them in. But no, Eric Swalwell, representing the liberal left and the Democrats in this country, have decided that the only thing that is an issue here is if they've committed a crime here, which, by what, again, I want to reiterate, they have committed a crime here. All right. But also, he's being disingenuous because liberals, the left in this country, if you've committed a crime in this country and you're in the country illegally, they still want you to be able to stay here. That's what their policies have been in California, in his state. All right.
Come across with documents, should they be deported?
If they have not paid taxes and if their draw on the taxpayer benefits are larger than the contribution they're making to the economy, or if they're involved in criminal activity, they should be deported.
How do we measure that?
The same way that the IRS measures my income every year. It seems like if the IRS can track down every aspect of every receipt that I've ever submitted, and
So
they can do so for hundreds of millions of other Americans, they can do that for illegal immigrants as well, except for the fact that no one knows how many are in the country thanks to this administration.
So you would be cool with creating a system where they could pay those taxes if they wanted to, and then stay and work and put food on our table?
All right. So now I just want to point out that that was a win for Ben Shapiro without a lot of people noticing it. Eric Swalwell thinks that he's pivoting and saying, oh, so you'd be fine with having a system where illegal immigrants could pay taxes. That by asking that question, Eric Swalwell has conceded the point that the people in this country illegally are, in fact, working, earning money, and subverting our tax system, which, by the way, multiple crimes. Working in the country illegally is a crime. Making the money for that work is a crime. Not reporting that money to the IRS is a crime. So Eric Swalwell, by cleverly saying, oh, you'd be okay by creating a system where they would pay taxes, is conceding the fact that the system isn't there right now. And therefore, those illegal immigrants continue to break the laws. And he doesn't care. He doesn't care at all. Of course they don't. But it gets worse. It gets worse.
It depends on how long it would take for them to pay the taxes, and they would also have to go presumably to the back of the line, although I'm not sure why I'm testifying about immigration policy at this point.
How about banning the abortion pill? That's part of Project 2025. Do you support that part?
I think that that's a state-by-state issue on a personal level. I'm
just asking you.
Sure, I'm a fully pro-life person, which means that I'm not in favor of the distribution of the abortion pill.
Banning same-sex marriage. What about that part?
I am in favor of traditional marriage between a man and a woman, and I'm perfectly fine with anyone having any sort of voluntary sexual arrangement they seek. That's a different thing from whether the government should attach benefits to that personal relationship.
But you think it's a sin to have same-sex marriage?
I mean, I'm confused. Are you asking me as a religious Jew what I think about biblically?
I'm just asking, is it a sin to be gay?
Is it a sin to be gay? I mean, how long do we have here? 2 minutes? I mean, if the basic idea is that sexual orientation is up for government regulation, I'm not in favor of the government regulating the private consenting sexual activity of adults. That is a different thing, once again, from whether the government ought to engage in actual benefits for particular sexual arrangements that adults make.
But again, just you to me, is it a sin or not?
From a religious Jewish perspective, orientation is not a sin, but activity is. That's also the same perspective of most major religions, so far as I'm aware.
Okay. And how about...
I'm going to pause there for a second. I don't know about you, but this is terrifying. An elected official in this country, in the United States of America, sitting in his seat of power, one of 435 members of the House of Representatives, asking an American citizen to testify under oath about what behaviors he believes are sinful or not. Which, by the way, what Ben just articulated is what every major Judeo-Christian and Muslim religion espouses and maintains. Yes, even you Episcopalians. Why is this relevant? But is anyone else outraged by the idea that Eric Swalwell, a member of the House of Representatives, a member of Congress, would compel a U.S. citizen to testify under oath about whether they believe any behavior is sinful or not? That's disgusting. By the way, these are the people who say that we are looking to create some sort of totalitarian Handmaid's Tale religious test in this country. These are the people who will call us authoritarian and totalitarian. These are the people who hold up the phony separation of church and state anytime we want to swear an oath to God on a Bible or have under God in the Pledge of Allegiance. They're the ones who will start screaming separation of church and state. And here he is literally putting a religious test into this committee hearing, a hearing about censorship and internet policy. Who in the does this man think he is to ask any American citizen about their religious beliefs and whether they think something is sinful or not? That's despicable, and it's terrifying. You should be terrified by this. This is how they like to use their power. This is how they want to use their power. This is how they do use their power whenever they have the opportunity, because they want to criminalize your beliefs. They want to isolate you for what you believe and make it unacceptable in our nation or on the public square. In fact, he doubles down in a moment.
Cutting Social Security. Do you support that part of 2025?
I'm not sure what Project 2025's position on Social Security is. I'm in favor of the restructuring of Social Security along the lines of privatization and lowering and increasing the retirement age, because you, as well as every other congressperson, knows Social Security is going to go bankrupt, and yet everyone seems to have an interest in lying about it for the next decade and a half until we have to take austerity measures or radically increase inflation or taxes.
And bans against books about slavery. Do you support that part about?
Why would I possibly be in favor of bans about books about slavery? That would be absolutely ridiculous. What I am in favor of is the idea that school libraries should be able to make decisions along the lines of what exactly is appropriate for, say, a seventh grader and whether they ought to be treated to cartoons and genderqueer. That's not quite the same thing.
And just...
So the whole book banning angle didn't work well for Eric Swalwell there. That's why he moves on from it. But good for Ben. This isn't about banning books. This is about school libraries under the instruction and guidance of parents and taxpayers, along with their elected representatives on the school board, to determine which books are and are not appropriate for young children. That's not book banning. That's using discretion in determining what's appropriate. And just so you know, every single book involved in these discussions, the vast majority of the books involved in these discussions have gay porn in them. Gay porn. It's always gay porn. What is it about them wanting to push gay porn on children? It's like, it's a sickness. Literally, it's a sickness. But then he turns back to the sinful question, and this is where it really hits home.
Because we found some receipts. You did say, I think homosexual activity is a sin.
Yes, I'm a religious Jew.
Sure,
that's true.
There's a genetic component.
You found me out.
Orientation, but the view of all religious people I know has always been that sexual behavior is something that is up to you. And you said, I may have a desire to sleep with many women, but I do not.
I agree with me. Yes, that's true.
Congratulations on your I'm sure it's very hard to restrain yourself.
Okay, so I just want to reiterate here that we've got a congressman who is challenging, as if Ben Shapiro has done something wrong, challenging a person for his religious beliefs and determining through his faith and his understanding of his faith that certain behaviors are sinful or not. I want to reiterate that what is written there as receipts, as Eric Swalwell put it. I think homosexual activity is a sin. There's a genetic component, I'm sure, to homosexual orientation. But the view of all religious people I know has been that sexual behavior is something that is up to you. In other words, and he likens it to, I think, what is scientifically and certainly anecdotally and observationally a basic truth, that is, men have a proclivity for, or concupiscence. Can I say concupiscence? A concupiscence for multiple sexual partners and activities. And men, through social and societal and civilizational norms that have been informed by a Judeo-Christian ethic, have been compelled in our society to suppress that desire. And it stems from the revealed law of God that says you shall not fornicate, you shall not commit adultery. You may be born that way, that you want to, you may feel compelled to and desire to do it, but because it is sinful, you don't. And if you do, you have sinned. That's what every Orthodox traditional religion in the Western world believes. And here's where we come back to their complete and total lack of understanding of irony in any way whatsoever, because Eric Swalwell just used the power of his position to suggest that espousing that belief is in some way wrong, that it is unfit for the public square to say what Ben Shapiro just said, that I just said, that in some way there's something wrong with you for actually taking your religious faith seriously. And by the way, I don't even think you need to be religious to believe that. But Eric Swalwell wants to use the word sin here because it seems like you're a right-wing Christo-fascist or something. And here's where the irony comes in. Remember what this hearing was really all about? This hearing was about censorship of conservative ideas. And the fact that if you espouse or express a conservative opinion, that it is then flagged as dangerous and disinformation. And there is a concerted effort with these organizations, in some ways funded by the federal government, as Gabe Kaminsky's great reporting at the Washington Examiner has proven, that those websites will now be demonetized and people can't make a living for expressing that opinion that is now considered wrong. It's wrongthink. It's disinformation. It has no place in the public square. And Eric Swalwell, unwittingly, because he chose not to actually address the facts and the basis of the committee, decided to go through this whole exercise to try to embarrass or isolate Ben Shapiro. Eric Swalwell proved the whole point of the hearing. Eric Swalwell, in a position of power, as a member of the party that currently runs the federal government through the White House, Eric Swalwell used his position to hold up those very ideas, isolate them, and paint them as inappropriate for public discourse. Eric Swalwell just did exactly what these organizations are doing, trying to criminalize conservative thought. That's what they want to do, is criminalize conservative thought, criminalize conservative beliefs, criminalize conservatives. If not, then what did we just see? One other notable moment happened when Ben Shapiro was in the hearing room. He was confronted by a radical protester. And again, all these people, from Eric Swalwell to this protester, they think they look good when they go up to Ben. It doesn't make them look good. Here, take a look.
How does it feel if you use those poison the American public and what you've been perpetuating? Racism, white supremacy, and the genocide that is being carried out on the Palestinian people.
How does it feel to stand for Hamas? Does that feel good to you? Do you feel good standing in solidarity with a terrorist group that has murdered 1,200
I feel very good
Jews
standing
and
in
keeps
solidarity
people
with Palestinian people who have been murdered by Israel, by U.S. paid tax dollars and bonds, and you have continued to spew hate.
Hamas should not start a war on behalf of its citizens and then shoot its own citizens, and you stand for it. Makes you a disgrace.
The people
to
of
human dignity
Palestine
and
have
human
been
rights.
occupied for 75 years, and the blood is on the hands of every person in this Congress and every person who watches your propaganda of hate, white supremacy, and racism. You have been poisoning the American public for them to also be complicit in what is going on in Palestine. Shame on you and shame on every one of you who have invited them into this building.
My favorite touch on that is at the very end there. Take a look at her shirt. Press. I have no doubt she probably works for the press. Maybe that's how she got in. How do these protesters make their way into Congress and disrupt the hearings like this? In fact, why isn't she arrested? Why isn't she thrown in to the same cell with the J6ers? Funny how there's two different rules. in the House of Representatives. Good job, Ben Shapiro. Proud to know you, proud to call you a friend.